It's never about the person, never was. You're chasing a feeling, a fleeting moment of escape, a distraction from the emptiness gnawing at your core. You think the connection to another will save you, that if you catch them, you'll catch peace. But the joke's on you, because people aren't the solution. They're just the bait, luring you into believing the fix is somewhere outside yourself. But what you're really chasing, that's buried much deeper. People think they're after love, after affection, after someone who will make them whole. But that's just the surface. What you crave is the feeling that someone can bring. Security, validation, that sweet sense of importance. It's intoxicating, isn't it? The high you get when someone makes you feel like you matter. But it's a drug, a fleeting rush. And once it fades, you're left with the same emptiness, the same hunger. The feeling slips through your fingers, and you're left chasing again, thinking it was the person who slipped away when, in reality, it was just the illusion. You're not chasing them. You're chasing the idea of what they represent. You've projected your desires, your needs, onto another, believing they hold the key to your happiness. But here's the twist. Happiness was never theirs to give. It's not something you find in someone else's arms. It's something you conjure from within. And the more you chase, the further it runs, until you're exhausted, wondering why none of it fills the void. You think catching them will fix you, but it's a mirage. People aren't the answer to your brokenness, and chasing them will only lead you deeper into your own shadows. People love to believe that someone else can save them, that if they just find the right person, the right connection, all their demons will disappear. But you're not hunting for a partner. You're running from yourself. Every time you reach out, every time you fall into the chase, you're trying to escape the cold truth that no one outside of you can fill the void within. The feeling you're after, that spark of belonging, of meaning, that's something only you can create. People can distract you from it, sure, but they can't solve it. And the longer you chase, the further you stray from the real work that needs to be done. Here's the dark reality. The feeling you're chasing doesn't exist. Not in the way you think it does. It's a construct, an illusion designed to keep you running in circles, convincing you that the next person, the next connection, will be the one that finally makes it all make sense. But the feeling is a lie. It's a temporary fix, a bandage on a gaping wound. And once that bandage falls off, you're back where you started, alone, confused, and still searching. The person you thought you needed, they were never part of the equation. They were just a mirror reflecting back your own emptiness, your own need for something you refuse to find in yourself. Stop chasing the feeling. Stop running after the mirage of someone who will fix you. The chase is endless, a game you can't win because the prize was never real to begin with. The feeling you're after is inside you, waiting to be unlocked, waiting for you to stop looking outward and start confronting the void within. That's the only way forward. To stop running, stop chasing, and face the reality that no person will ever give you what you're truly after. You're chasing ghosts, and the longer you run, the deeper you fall into the trap of thinking happiness lies somewhere outside of your own mind. The feeling you're hunting, it was never about them. It's always been about you, about the parts of yourself you're too afraid to face. Chasing someone else is the easy way out. It's the path that lets you believe the answer is out there, somewhere, if only you could find the right person. But the real journey? That's inward. The feeling you crave is buried beneath layers of fear, insecurity, and unhealed wounds. And no person, no relationship, will ever dig deep enough to uncover it for you. Ah, attention, the currency of fools, thrown away on fantasies, on daydreams spun from the threads of infatuation. You waste it. Spend it recklessly, feeding this illusion you've crafted in your mind. That person, that perfect figure, untouched by flaws, untainted by the grime of reality. It's all in your head, a masterpiece of delusion. You've built them up, haven't you? Sculpted them into something godlike, a savior who'll swoop in and fill every gap in your soul. But that's the joke. The real person, the one standing outside your little mental theater. They're nothing like the vision you've created. You're not falling for them. You're falling for a ghost of your own making. Attention flows freely to this image you've constructed, like a river that never runs dry. You pour your energy, your thoughts, your emotions into this fantasy, this picture-perfect version that exists only in the twisted corridors of your mind. And while you're distracted, lost in the glow of your imaginary love, reality sits there, waiting to tear it apart. But the mind, oh, it loves its illusions. It clings to the idea that the person you've created is real, that they're everything you've imagined. And that's where it all falls apart. The person you're infatuated with isn't real. It's a projection, a flawless figure who never makes mistakes, never disappoints, never reveals the harshness of their humanity. You're chasing a mirage, investing in something that has no substance. It's not love, it's obsession, a carefully curated fantasy that feeds off your attention. Every time you think about them, you're not thinking about the person. You're thinking about the ideal, the version you've crafted to be exactly what you need them to be. And the worst part? The real person could never live up to that, because the real version is flawed, broken, messy. But that doesn't fit the story you've built in your head, does it? So you ignore it, blind yourself to reality, because facing the real person means shattering the fantasy. The version in your mind is perfect, never demanding, always understanding, always there when you need them. But perfection doesn't exist outside the confines of your imagination. It's easier to be infatuated with an illusion, to fall for a version of someone that only exists in the safety of your thoughts. Because that version, that's the one who never pushes back, never has their own needs, never disappoints. In your mind, they are everything you want, because you've made them that way. The irony? You're not falling for them at all. You're falling for your own reflection, for the version of yourself that feels complete when attached to the fantasy. It's the ultimate act of self-sabotage, isn't it? You spend all your energy chasing a dream, burning your attention like it's infinite, feeding this illusion until there's nothing left. You tell yourself you're in love, that what you feel is real. But what you're really doing is running from reality. The person in your head isn't real. The connection you're chasing doesn't exist outside your own fantasy. But you've spent so much attention, so much mental currency, that the thought of letting go feels unbearable. You'd rather chase the dream than face the fact that it was never real to begin with. Every bit of attention you spend on this illusion is energy wasted. Energy that could be directed towards something real, something tangible, something that doesn't crumble the moment you look too closely. But you won't look, will you? Because looking means acknowledging that the person you're obsessed with is human, flawed, imperfect, and that doesn't fit into the dream. So you ignore the cracks, the inconsistencies, the glaring signs that the version you've built in your head could never exist outside of it. So keep wasting your attention. Keep feeding the fantasy. But know this, you're not falling for the person, you're falling for a feeling, a projection of what you wish they could be. And in doing so, you're blinding yourself to reality, to the fact that no one, not even the most perfect illusion, can fill the void you refuse to confront. The person in your mind is nothing but a reflection of your own desires, a ghost made of your own longing. And until you see that, until you stop feeding the fantasy, you'll stay trapped in this endless loop, chasing after something that was never real to begin with. Rereading the same chapter, reliving the same moments in your head, like a broken record on repeat, hoping, praying that somehow the ending will change, that somehow, if you go back just one more time, you'll find something different. But no matter how many times you turn those pages, the story remains the same. The pain, the disappointment, the loss, it's all locked in place, set in stone. The past is a graveyard, full of dead moments that can't be revived, no matter how many times you dig them up. Yet here you are, stuck in the loop, trapped by your own mind, revisiting the scenes that haunt you, as if by some miracle, the past will rewrite itself. But beautiful things, they're never perfect. Perfection is the lie you've been fed, the illusion that keeps you clinging to what's already gone. You're chasing this ideal version of the past, trying to smooth out the cracks, erase the mistakes. But that's not how life works. The beauty in anything, in anyone, comes from the imperfection, from the flaws, from the chaos that makes it real. What you're doing, rewinding, replaying, it's like trying to paint over the cracks in a masterpiece, trying to hide the very things that give it depth, that make it alive. But you're too fixated on perfection to see the beauty in the mess. Your future needs you, but you're too busy shackled to the past, too busy dragging along the weight of what no longer serves you. You're caught up in memories, in regrets, and those memories, they've made a home in your head, taking up space, suffocating the very part of you that could be building something new. The past doesn't need you. It never did. It's finished, done, sealed off from the reach of your influence. But the future? That's where the real story begins, where you get to step into the unknown, where you finally let go of the chains that bind you to the person you used to be. But the longer you cling to what was, the further you drift from what could be. The present is the only thing that's real. The past is a phantom, a shadow that lingers, whispering lies in your ear, trying to convince you that it still matters, that it still holds power over you. But it's a trap. The past only holds the power you choose to give it. The more you feed it, the more you let it dictate your choices, the more it consumes you. It's a slow death, a kind of poison that creeps into your thoughts, convincing you that the future can wait, that there's still something left to salvage in the ruins of what once was. But the only thing that can save you, that can heal you, is right here, right now. The present moment, that fleeting, elusive now, that is where you are alive. Not in the past you keep replaying, not in the future you're too afraid to face. The present is where change happens, where transformation begins, where you can finally put down the weight you've been carrying and step into something new. The future isn't some distant dream, some abstract concept you'll get to eventually. It's built in the now, brick by brick, moment by moment. But as long as you're stuck rereading the old chapters, you're missing the chance to write a new one. So stop chasing ghosts. Stop living in the illusion that the past still holds some kind of meaning. Let it die. Let it fade into the background where it belongs, and focus on what's in front of you. The only thing that can truly heal you. The only thing that can set you free. The present. It's the raw, untamed force that can cut through the fog of memory, that can break the cycle you've been spinning in for far too long. Anger. That sweet poison we sip, thinking it will burn those who've wronged us. But the irony? It doesn't touch them, not in the way we wish it would. Anger is the punishment we inflict on ourselves for someone else's misstep, a slow, festering wound that only deepens the more we feed it. And yet, we cling to it, thinking it gives us power, control, some semblance of righteousness. But anger? It's a prison, one we lock ourselves in, throwing away the key, all the while thinking the bars keep others out. The real joke? The only person suffering in that cage is the one holding the bars. Being angry gives the illusion of action, like you're doing something to right the wrong. But it's hollow, isn't it? Just a smokescreen for deeper wounds you refuse to face. You think the fire of your rage will scorch the earth, bend it to your will. But all it really does is consume you from the inside out. While the person who sparked it, they go on, oblivious, unaffected, while you burn in your own flames. Anger isn't power, it's surrender. It's giving control of your peace, your mind, over to someone who doesn't even care they've taken it. Misery, though, that's a different beast. It's not something that just happens to you. It's a choice, one you make every day. It's the constant decision to hold on to the pain, to nurture it, to let it become part of your identity. Most people love their misery, whether they admit it or not, because it gives them something familiar, something to cling to. There's comfort in the suffering, because at least it's known. Letting go, stepping out of that misery, that requires facing the uncertainty, the unknown, and that's where most people falter. It's easier to stay in the dark, to choose the pain over the risk of something better. Anyone can find the switch once the lights are on. That's the easy part, right? Flick it, and the world lights up. But what's the point? Illumination reveals everything. Every scar, every flaw, every mistake. And for most people, that's far too much to handle. They prefer the shadows, where things remain hidden, where the misery they've chosen doesn't have to be confronted. There's a kind of sick satisfaction in sitting in the dark, pretending you can't find the way out. It's an excuse, a way to stay stagnant, to avoid growth. The darkness, the anger, the misery, it's all self-imposed, but it gives people a sense of control over their pain. You've locked yourself in that loop, replaying the wrongs, letting the anger fester, all the while pretending that it's someone else's fault. But the real tragedy, you have the key. You've always had the key. You just choose not to use it because the anger has become your safety net. The switch is there, waiting for you. But what's the point of turning it on if you're too afraid of what the light will show. Red flags. They're the signals we always think will change. The warnings we convince ourselves can be ignored, but they don't turn green. They never have, never will. The moment you see them, you already know, but the mind plays tricks. It tells you to wait, to hope, to believe that somehow this time things will be different. But red flags are not just warnings. They are prophecies. Ignore them, and they lead you to the exact ruin they predicted. It's a slow poison, subtle at first, but lethal in time. You keep holding on, thinking you can fix it, thinking you can change it. But all you're doing is dragging yourself deeper into the abyss. Disassociation. Now that's the real power. People think revenge is the way to reclaim control. The striking back will give them peace. But revenge? It's messy, emotional, desperate. Disassociation, though, that's clean. That's where the real strength lies. To disconnect, to remove yourself entirely, to become untouchable. That's power. No anger, no attachment, no need for retribution. Just cold distance. Walk away, not because you're weak, but because you've transcended the situation entirely. Nothing stings more than realizing the person you tried to break has simply stopped caring, has let go of the chains you tried to bind them with. Anything that costs your peace is too expensive. Peace is the one currency worth more than any victory, any revenge, any fleeting satisfaction. The moment you let something or someone steal that from you, you've already lost. And yet, people pay the price willingly, over and over again. They let toxic relationships, toxic thoughts, toxic habits chip away at their peace, believing the fight is worth it. But here's the twist. The fight is never worth your peace. Nothing is. Once you understand that, once you refuse to sacrifice it, the game changes. You become immune to the chaos around you, because nothing can drag you down if you've already let go. Holding on is what drags people under. The tighter the grip, the harder the fall. People clutch their pain, their anger, their grudges, like lifelines, believing they're protecting themselves. But what they're really doing is tying anchors to their ankles, sinking deeper into the weight of what no longer serves them. Let it go. Drop the rope. The things that drag you down only have power because you're holding on. The moment you release them, the moment you stop trying to control everything, that's when you rise. That's when you become untouchable, invincible. Not because you fought harder, but because you realized the fight was never yours to begin with. Revenge, anger, holding on to red flags, it's all a trap. A way to keep you bound to a story that was never meant for you. Let go of it. Disassociate from it. And watch how quickly the weight falls away. Nothing can touch you if you're not tethered to it. Freedom isn't handed out. It's earned, crafted, built through the careful discipline of self-formulated rules. Chaos masquerades as freedom, making people think they're liberated, while they're really slaves to their whims, to the world's noise. But real freedom, it comes from control, from mastering yourself, setting your own rules, sticking to them with unyielding obedience. Because without that, you're just another pawn, reacting to everything, moved by the slightest pull of the strings. True freedom is the quiet rebellion against the chaos, the silent uprising of self-discipline that makes you untouchable. Once you catch even the smallest glimmer of hope, hold it tight. It's fragile, easily shattered by the noise of the world, by those who would rather see you fall than rise. That hope, it's your signal to begin building, but not loudly, not with fanfare. No, build in silence, in the shadows, where no one can reach you. When you build in silence, there's nothing for them to attack, nothing for them to sabotage. Your growth becomes invisible, and that's your greatest weapon. They can't fight what they don't see coming, and by the time they notice, it's already too late. You've become something they can't destroy. Silence is your shield. It protects your progress, your healing, your rise, while everyone else clamors for attention, showing their hand too early. You move like a ghost, unseen, unnoticed. You build brick by brick, without the need for validation, without the need for eyes on you. And when the foundation is strong enough, when you've constructed something unbreakable, that's when you emerge. Not as the person they thought they could control, but as something far more dangerous. Someone who built themselves from the ashes, in the quiet, without the interference of the world's chaos. By the time anyone realizes what you've built, by the time they see what you've become, it's already beyond their reach. Your silence was your greatest strategy, your discipline, your sharpest weapon.